JKB back with another episode. Today on the show, I'm reviewing Skyrim VR. Thank you to Bethesda for sending over the review copy. And if you like what I've done by the end of this review, please consider to subscribing to me because I need to eat sandwiches. Let's get into the review of Skyrim VR. Now, of course, it's very hard to kind of tell you what it's like to put VR on. I don't know if you've experienced it or not. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. If you haven't experienced VR, I'm going to say it's not for everybody, but the people out there that really connect with the environment that you get into when you put on a VR headset, their eyes are going to follow their heads because you're in Skyrim now. The idea of being in Skyrim is absurd, and it is something I've dreamt about since I was like a 12-year-old boy living in the swamps. I've always wanted to be in a Skyrim game. The idea of having a dragon come over your head, oh, that sounds sexual, but like fly over your head and shoot fire at you it's in VR. It's fucking crazy. I'm gonna break this down into 4 sections, starting with movement. In a lot of VR games, it's very tricky. They have a teleportation idea in games that you just simply teleport around the world by kind of pointing at where you want to teleport to and then using your stamina to get to that point. However, there's problems with that in this version of the game. You kind of overlook puzzles, like such as traps on the ground. You now kind of cheat because you could just fly over them. Okay, that doesn't work. So what else do you have for me, Bethesda? They've done something a little interesting here and introduced the idea of moving your character around with one of the PlayStation Move controllers. Now, let me point out, if you're playing Skyrim without 2 of these, then you're dumb. You're just plain dumb as a barrel of fish. It's very stupid. Go out there and buy 2 of them if you don't have that for your VR experience, because holding a sword or shooting electricity out of your hand in this game is just one of the best experiences I've ever had with like VR. But getting back to the movement idea is that you just hold the button on the front here, this action button. I think it's called the PlayStation Move Action button, which is a long fucking name for a button, but you just push it in. And to move, it's simple. You just push forward, hold forward, you're walking. If you want to move left, you go left. You want to go right, you go right. You want to slow down, you ease up. When you point backwards a little, you walk backwards. So it's essentially doing this. And guess what? It really does work. Now, the problem, though, has to get into the combat, which I'll get into in a second, but let's get to the graphic side of this. A lot of people, kind of look at it and go, it's really jagged. It's got issues. Now, the PlayStation 4 base model is a little bit more dulled down than the Pro version of the game. I was lucky enough to see the differences, and I will say the people that have the PlayStation 4 version of the VR headset, it's good. It's fine. It's going to be when it gets to the level of clarity in the game where you start to notice that the PlayStation 4 Pro will outdo certain sections. Now, inside of a cave, that's not going to really apply, but when you're outside in Skyrim walking around, you'll notice on the PlayStation 4 Pro version, it is much clearer, and it is obviously rendering it at a higher, resolution. Fucking lost my mind there. Now, let's move on to something else in the game here. World interaction is something I wrote down, and I thought it was so important to tell you what it's like to be holding this in your hand and have your hands in the game and being able to have like a quick menu, your favorites menu on the left. Let's pretend I'm holding 2 of these, but on the left hand here, I'm able to just pull up a favorite and kind of flick up and get my sword out, get my shield out. I'm holding my shield, moving it around, swinging with, this is crazy. You have to actually swing the swords in real time with the amount of, oomph that you want to give a character. So if you want to really whack the skull off of the skeleton chasing you around, you have to swing like a madman. And that's like a heavy swing or over the head or boom. It's like, okay, I get why this is cool, but how long am I going to use the sword swinging it? After a while, you kind of get tired, but you have your shield. You can do things like just go, just the tip, touch his nose with the tip of the sword. You could do that, but it's not going to take that much damage off of, say, a skeleton or another, character that you're attacking. The cool part about this is I pulled out my bow and arrow, and oh my God, was it spectacular. You grab the arrow with, you know, the move up here and the move back here, and you hold the trigger and you literally pull back a bow. And this moves around and you gotta let go, and it's really happening in front of you. I gotta say, in closing here, because a lot of people want to know if they should really invest into PlayStation VR. And at this point in time, with a game like Skyrim, it's not perfect. And I'm going to go over the pros and cons in a second. It's not perfect. Combat, you know, let's just get into the pros and cons. Combat is very tricky when you run into a room when you're using the motion controls, not the teleportation, but running in and trying to like look around and all these people are around you and you're trying to swing. Yes, of course, like that's something that VR just doesn't have yet. You can't figure that out yet in VR, but I'll say that this is the best like version of that situation I've ever seen. You can do quick turnaround things. If you hit the X or the O, it actually moves the whole camera for you. So it kind of resituates your, you know, your orientation. So if you're facing here and somebody's hitting you over here, yeah, you can kind of like look over there and move, but you can also just like snap the camera over there, which is useful because you snap it over and you don't actually have to turn your head. You just snap the point of view over to that, then you whack him in the head. You whack him like he's fucking, till his blood's coming out of him. Okay, I got issues with that, but got issues with killing things in the game. I mean, if you have, like, this sounds nuts. If you ever had a dream about going into a game and a, you know, a role-playing game and being in it as a character, this is it. They've done it. Again, okay, pros and cons, you know, cons. You got issues with the graphics, things are popping in and out, you gotta deal with those. So yeah, that's a bit of a letdown that Bethesda had to go back there again and reissue a game with the same issues we've had in this game in the past. It's not a disaster in terms of the issues, the technical issues, but at times you're going to notice things popping in and out, characters flying in the sky, you know, dragons' bones are shaking after you kill them, and it like shakes into the sky, and you just kind of like have your sword and you wave to it, bye. That's like, I guess that's supposed to happen? I don't think so. Another downside to this is it's very blurry at times. I mean, I'm going to say 10 to 15 feet in front of you is clear, but once you get past that, when you're in the open world, it's like sometimes it's blurry, sometimes it isn't. The water looks really cool, and when you go into the water, it's like, oh my god, I'm in the water, I'm drowning, oh, I'm dead. So those things happen, but it's just very unpredictable on exactly when the blurriness is going to show up and when it isn't. Graphically, it's not the best looking version of Skyrim because, of course, it isn't. It's on PlayStation VR. Now let's get to the good. The bow and arrow is just unbelievable to use. The shield on your left hand, or if you're right-handed, is just so much fun. You can see the sword coming down and you can block it. It's just that simple. The best part about combat has to be the magic abilities. Throwing lightning. Like, you're telling me this is not in a Star Wars game yet in VR, and how that hasn't happened is fucking absurd. Because I equipped the lightning, and it's you got the headset on, and it's like fucking Darth Vader shit's going on, Emperor Palpatine shit's going on here. I mean, it's spectacular. You're throwing fireballs, and the aiming is spectacular because it's 1-to-1. You're moving it around, and you're throwing a lightning bolt. That's amazing. Now, I'm going to say this. If you are out there thinking like, I got PlayStation VR, but I don't know if I want to spend the $70 for this. Well, let's say this. Do you want to live in that environment constantly? Are you somebody who can handle VR longer than 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Because you're going to want to spend hundreds of hours in this version of the game. There's nothing like walking around Skyrim. You're going to see things that you've seen before, but in a new perspective that you've never seen before because you've never experienced being in the Skyrim. You're in it. I mean, I can't push that enough. So what I'm going to do now is not going to give it a score. I'm just going to say, should you go out there and get it? Should you not? If you have PlayStation VR, I'm going to say it's the best VR experience I've ever had. It has issues, but, you know, patches might fix some of those things. Then in closing, do you buy it? If you don't have VR and you want to go out there and get everything, I don't know if VR is worth all of that. I would suggest to go to an arcade or a friend's house, somebody who has VR, and see if it works for you, because a lot of people are going to get sick playing this game, especially if they're going to be playing it for like 20 hours, you know, every couple of days. It can get nauseating. I got over it quick because you kind of are playing with your mind. You're tricking it to believe that you're in an environment that you're just not in. And sometimes things are moving around when you're not moving your head, and it can be confusing for a lot of people. However, if you can really enjoy VR without having those issues, I would say VR is kind of worth it to get into if you're a huge Skyrim fan. I mean, like, absurdly obsessed with it. If you were just like kind of a casual player, this isn't something I would jump on and spend $700 on yet. I would wait until Black Friday, which is coming up soon, see if you can get a deal on the headset. I do recommend the game. It's definitely VR, and it's not for everyone. So thank you so much for watching this episode. This is the best VR experience I've ever had, period. Even with the PC version of VR headsets, you're in Skyrim. I mean, enough said. It's something that we've all dreamt about. So if you like what I've done in this review, please consider subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you in the next episode of JKB.